Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talk of the Town. You know me, Karen Bukes, and I'm the host for the evening. Do you know tonight's show is $3.99? Next week it's $400, and the Three Amigos are on. I don't know who the Three Amigos are. I have a suspicion, but tune in next week for the 400th show. And on February 10th, I'm very pleased to announce I'll be hosting, of course, but our state senator, Vinnie DiMacedo, will be here with me, and I'm really looking forward to that. Okay, let's say hello to some of our underwriters. David and Kevin Gallerani, two people that we love and admire. They own Cape Auto Body and Cape Service right here on Plymouth, Samoset, and Summer Streets, where service and quality are superb. One Stop Painting, Jeff Cohen, he does a fabulous job, has a fabulous company. And another great underwriter, Wrestling Brewster. Wrestling with Computers, the show is right here on PAC TV, and he's really good at fixing all the computers. He knows what he's doing. Now, before our two guests come on, and by the way, I want you to stay tuned because they have a lot of great information for you. Before our two guests come on, tonight we have a special announcement from a very special friend who I happen to respect, as does Kenny and his organization. The Education Foundation is here to tell you what is coming up for Plymouth. Bob Betters, welcome.
Thank you, Karen. I appreciate your having me on. Thanks very much.
You know, Ken, you were here last week.
I was.
And Ken tried to edit that piece, so you didn't have to come in this week, but the sound was off, and you were so good to come in this week.
I'm happy to do it. I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks.
Please tell us about what's coming up.
Well, what's coming up is the 6th annual Valentine Gala for the Plymouth Education Foundation. Plymouth Education Foundation was founded to support educational opportunities for kids, for educators, for people in the community, not funded by tax-based revenue. We've been in existence since 2008, but our fundraising really kicked off in 2010. Since then, we've raised money. We want to raise more money, and the Valentine Gala is our primary fundraising event for the year. So this year, it's Saturday, February 6th, which is a week from this coming Saturday, at the Pavilion at Pine Hills Golf, starting at 6 p.m. We have dinner, live music and dancing, live and silent auction. It's always been well attended. It's sold out for the past 6 years, and it is going to be sold out this year. And I was here last week. I was kind of a little bit worried about ticket sales, but since last week, we've exceeded 150 tickets sold. So we're fastly approaching the maximum number of tickets that we can sell. So if people do want to participate in the gala, we encourage you to purchase tickets as soon as possible. They can be purchased by contacting my office, which is Withington and Betters at 508-747-3545, or the Plymouth Education website is up on the screen, and the Plymouth Education number is there to go into voicemail, but someone will get back to you. That number is 508-747-8212. Tickets are $75 per person, $550 for a table of 8.
Now, Bob, tell us what your foundation does.
Well, as I indicated, we try to provide grant funds to unusual, unique opportunities for kids. One of the grants we did this year was the kids voting. For 2016, we provided a grant for that. We provided a grant for the kids' travel to Shishigahama, earlier this year. That's just a couple of things that we've done. We also have established 2 scholarships from the Plymouth Education Foundation, $2,000 per year, one to a Plymouth North student, one to a Plymouth South student. And Anthony Shenna, who's on our board, has been instrumental in creating or establishing and promoting the Alumni Association.
Yes.
That's currently a subcommittee of the Education Foundation, but the concept is to get Plymouth alumni involved in mentoring, and other activities to help kids that are currently in school with college work, with other work that they do. So I think that's a great idea and a great concept that the Plymouth Education Foundation has gotten behind and has promoted.
You're very fortunate to have Anthony on the board. He's a former selectman, sat on the finance committee. He is very dedicated to the children of this community and their parents and everyone. And Anthony works very hard, as does your entire board.
We've got a great board of directors. I mean, we're all volunteers. There's no payments involved in anything we do. It's all 100% volunteer. Barry Haskell is on the board. Nicole Manfredi, was a former school committee person and a current teacher. Lauren Backen, who's a CPA. Mark Garrett, who you know very well. Paul Vickery, Nancy Ceccarelli, Warren Phillips, who's a retired teacher. Barry Young, who's been involved with Pilgrim Hall Museum. I hope I didn't miss anybody. We've basically said, Anthony as well, and Sean Costa, who's also involved quite a bit in what we're doing in terms of fundraising, et cetera. So there's a great board, and we're fortunate to have people of quality on the board who are willing to kind of pitch in and work towards this, what we consider to be a great and worthy goal.
And any citizen can contribute to this foundation.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Any citizen can contribute. One thing I should say, Rockland Trust Company has been an ardent supporter of the foundation since its inception. Yeah. They've been our event sponsor for the past 5 years, and the Rockland Trust Charitable Foundation is an event sponsor again this year. But we have 2 new event sponsors this year. One is Best Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, Ram, which currently has a dealership underway, construction in Colony Place, and Red Brick, which is an 80 Makepeace community. So we have 3 great event sponsors this year. We've received a number of other sponsorship, not event sponsors, but a number of other sponsorships and donations. So we're well on our way for, I think, our highest total in terms of revenues that we've generated for any gala this year.
That's wonderful, Bob. You're a very respected foundation. And tell us once more when this event is.
It's Saturday evening, February 6th, starting at 6 p.m. at the Pavilion at Pine Hills Golf.
I thank you so much, and please give our best to the foundation.
One other
Sure.
comment, if I may, Karen. Adele Manfredi Excellence in Education Award.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, was an award that we established after Adele passed. She was on our board. She was one of the founding members. But we give an award in her name every year to people who show exemplary service in terms of education, community, et cetera. Mary Henry, who's a retired teacher, is the recipient this year. People in local government know Mary. She was a town meeting member for years. She was a very renowned teacher. People have referred to her as a force of nature. So Mary will be there this year to get that award.
That's wonderful. Some of her students should be there as well.
That would be nice.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for coming. You're welcome here anytime. Now, tonight we have 2 wonderful guests that are highly respected. To say they put their lives on the line 24/7 is an understatement. The department in which they serve took an oath to serve and protect, and they do that very well. For that, we are forever grateful. Please welcome Plymouth Police Chief Michael Botteri and Head of Operations John Rogers.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Karen.
I know you have a lot of great information, but let's start this way. You started out as patrolman, went to the academy. What brought you to Plymouth?
Brought me to Plymouth?
Yeah.
Well, I always liked the concept of it being a seacoast community. It was a large community where I thought the benefits or the opportunities would be greater in a larger department. I grew up in the town of Rockland, about 30 miles north of here. And that was my hometown for the most part, but I wanted to come somewhere where I felt I could, really, expand and
excel
and get a lot more opportunity.
What are some of your duties?
As the operation captain, I oversee the patrol unit as a whole, all 3 shifts, the 8 to 4 shift, 4 to 12 midnight shift. the detective unit, as well as the narcotics unit, and the special operations units, to include the street crimes unit, canine unit, bicycles, motorcycles,
Operations.
operations in general. And I also handle all the internal affairs investigations as well.
How many in the department?
The total number in the department is we're a staff for 112. We do have some vacancies at the moment that we're working on backfilling at this particular time. We have 87 patrolmen presently, or
91.
91 patrolmen presently, and that makes up the bulk of the patrol force, as well as the detectives and the other specialized units.
It's an awesome responsibility, and you do it so well, John.
Thank you very much.
Now, Chief, you know, you're in charge of the whole shebang.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And you do an awesome job.
Thank you, Karen. Appreciate that.
And I know it's 24/7 for you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You get that little buzz on you.
Yeah.
You know, you're there.
Well, it's a challenge, but you know we enjoy it. Both of us do.
Well, you've both been very well schooled. Do you do this on a yearly basis to keep up schooling and the academy? And
Yeah, we do a lot of that. I mean, we all went through the initial academy of approximately 6 months, but we continue to train in several different aspects. And I think what's important, I mean, we stay involved. I'm involved with a lot of Chiefs groups. You know, I'm the president of the Plymouth County Chiefs Group right now, association, the past president of the Southeastern Mass Chief of Police Groups, representing 120 communities, and past president of the FBI National Academy, New England chapter back in 2013. Both John and I have graduated from the FBI National Academy, so there's a lot of networking, a lot of training there. We continue that, and I think what's most important now is when you look at the training that police officers need, that's required. I'm also a member appointed by Governor Baker to the Municipal Police Training Committee, representing Southeast Mass Chiefs. So I'm involved in current training. What's the current training that we believe officers should have when they come out of the academy? So we're intimately involved in that, and there's a training advisory committee in Southeast Mass that I'm on as well. So I'm intimately involved in, where should we be going? And I can tell you, as far as training goes, right now we're looking at 21st century policing, and that's all that community engagement, if you will, and it's different than it was when we first got on.
yes, but you've always been like that. You were always into the community and
Yeah, when you look back and you look at community policing and neighborhood watch groups, that there were many, many years that I never was Mr. Meeting, and now Captain Rogers took that over, and he's filled that seat very well.
Yes.
That engagement with the community, we want trustworthiness.
Yeah.
We want people to think that we validate that we're a legitimate police department, and there's no other way of doing that except for face-to-face. People need to have confidence in their police department from chief down, to realize that when something goes bad, if something happens, and we hope it doesn't, but if it does, will the department do the right thing? And we want people to realize that we will, in every case, whether it's right or wrong, as far as whether it looks good or it looks bad, we're going to do the right thing.
our trust in the Plymouth Police Department is extraordinarily high. You've earned it. You have earned that mantle. You worked hard for it, and you're very sincere about it. So there's nothing else to say about, nobody can say anything about that because you're so appreciated for what you do. Now, I know that you're working very hard on the opiate issue, and which is first and in the forefront here. And it's a heartbreak for many of us. But you're there, and it's not regarded as a punishment if you go. Why don't you explain?
Well, you know what's happened, Karen, over the last few years is that we have been able to look at it a lot differently. I think if you talk to any police officer that that was put on, over 5 years ago, they never ever thought they would be, utilizing Narcan to save someone's life. And doing follow-up visits to make sure someone gets in a bed for treatment. So I think the philosophy in our department has changed, and I think in a lot of departments has changed, where they realize, we need to continually realize what we're tasked with. We're a police department, we're law enforcement driven, and we're not going to look the other way when it comes to violent, committing crimes or specifically selling or distributing drugs. But it seems like in a lot of these cases, what we've learned is that, unfortunately, they became addicted to drugs through other means, whether it's an injury and they have an opiate prescription. And the problem is that once the opiate prescription is over and they can't get it anymore, to buy it on the street's expensive, but heroin's a lot cheaper. So we've seen that because of that, it's a lot more accessible to people. So what we've done is, over the last couple of years, there are a lot of opiate groups going on. One of the challenges we have, I find myself going to an opiate group meeting and missing another one. The Plymouth County has a group. DA's office, DA Cruz, and Sheriff McDonald lead it. It's a county group. I represent the chiefs in that group. And what we're trying to do is try to get all the communities in Plymouth County, first of all, collecting the same data. Our data, our statistics in Plymouth seem high. And I think they seem high in a lot of ways because a lot of communities don't track it like we do. So when you look back in 2014, in the beginning of January 2014, we started to see we were having a problem. So we went back and started tracking and coding overdoses. So we can tell you that in 2014, when the police department did not carry Narcan, although the fire and Brewster ambulance did, we experienced 120 overdoses that the police went to. And that sounds like a lot, and it is. And out of those 120, we experienced 15 deaths that year. I think 3 or 4 in the last couple of weeks of the year. December's just a tough month for everyone. And we continued to track that into December. The only difference into 2015. The only difference is in January of 2015, we started carrying Narcan in the cruises. So if you will, now we have a full year of 2015 where we experienced police department response to 202 overdoses, from 120 to 202. We experienced 23 deaths last year. A few in December. So we went to 23 deaths. So the question would be, if we didn't start carrying Narcan in that year, would that have been a lot higher?
Yes.
Probably would have been at least somewhat higher. So there's a concern. But are all the communities tracking the same data so we can see if we're on the same page?
That's a great point.
Yeah.
To think of that. I'm sure they're not.
I mean, unfortunately, we just received a grant in the last couple of weeks for Narcan. And we work closely with Beth Israel Deaconess. They're just phenomenal with us in all our groups, and they allow us we became licensed so we could purchase at their cost through their pharmacy. And we also received a grant for $20,000 to share between police and fire for Narcan.
Good.
In order to, I think the Commonwealth gave out $700,000, and we got $20,000, and I think 30 other communities got it. To qualify for that grant, you had to have had at least 3 deaths per capita, per 100,000 people. So in Plymouth, if you have 50,000 people, you would have had to have less, but we've had 23 deaths. So we more than qualified for the grant, and we did get that. So we're able to now not have a monetary issue about providing the drug.
I don't think you should. I think that should be free.
Yeah, I think it's going to head that way. Unfortunately, in the commercial world, 3 years ago, Narcan was $12, and then during all of these issues, it's risen to somewhere around $75.
Now that isn't right.
So there's something that the legislature's doing. I think you can talk to Vinnie DiMacedo about it, and they're looking at capping and being able to do that. But what they have done is they've come up with a program where it's cheaper for police to purchase and fire department and put on a state grant. So they've helped us.
And Captain, I'm sure you know the bike patrol and your detectives and all, they carry it with them.
They do. Every officer going in the field at the beginning of his shift is assigned a pouch, a little green pouch that has 2 doses of Narcan in it.
Yeah.
They'll turn it back in at the end of the shift. And then obviously, if for any reason they have to use it, we have a stock in place to replace it immediately so that we're not short-handed when it goes out on the street.
That's right, and they're very well schooled in that, and they're on the lookout to help.
Absolutely. We've administered Narcan over dozens of times without question and without hesitation, and we've been very successful with it.
I want to encourage callers to call in 830-3971, 508-830-3971, and ask your questions. They're here to help you. And as you said before, there is no punishment involved.
Absolutely not.
Tell us the process.
Well, the process of that the police department's involved in has been evolving. So if we go back and talk a little bit about, briefly, we put on the street crimes unit back in July of 2014. And they worked specifically on this problem, and they still do that. So within a year and a half, bringing us to where we're at now, January 2016, they made over 300 arrests. Most of which are drug related, some quality of life issues and other things they work on. But that's not we're not really looking at numbers of arrests. We really want to make an impact on people. So with that, the street crimes unit continues to go down that path and work with the narcotics division. But we tried to say, what can we do next? We have a front row seat to this. So our next initiative was creating a pamphlet. The pamphlet that I think I have one, but the pamphlet that we've showed on the show before, and that pamphlet just gives options to people, so people can have an idea of where they can get some help. So what we do is every time we go to an overdose, and we have for a while, we'll give this to a family member or a friend, and it'll talk them through. It has a hotline in there for the police. It has different resources, and we will also talk them through a Section 35 if they call that number. So that was our first initiative, and then we started saying, well, what if families can't bring themselves to actually commit one of their loved ones? We get that.
This is an important point.
Okay.
Say that again.
So what we found is that we would be providing this information to family members. And I'll be honest with you, there was a time where I would say, they don't have enough family support to have someone step forward and get them help. And that's just not true. I was wrong. Really, it's just not that the family doesn't want to help. It's that they just can't bring themselves to do it. And it's a difficult and it's an intimidating procedure. So what we decided was the second time we went to an overdose, on all of those occasions, and we've done it on quite a few times, is we become the petitioner for Section 35, and we will petition, and we've been 100% successful. We've never been told no at the court. And we will then get a court order and bring your loved one to get some help. We will do that. We've done it many times. Now, we looked at this program. Now, the problem with that is it's a short-term fix. It's a 2-week to a month, and they can sign themselves out. It's voluntary once they get there, so there's no real long-term commitment. And what the experts are telling us through our collaboration at the meetings we go to is that is it's more successful if you have some type of consequence where they can stay in long term.
Yes.
Drug court is a great option. Drug court is a 14-month process. They come out with a job if they successfully graduate. So the goal would be to get them in a program like that. So when we started looking at this, we wanted to evolve. What more can we do? We're out there, what can we do? So we know there's a stigma involved. We're working towards removing that stigma. We don't want people to be worried about that. We talked about the change in the laws that kind of took away some of our tools, where hypodermic needles back years ago became legal, so that was a way of us getting someone some help. You cannot charge someone who's actively overdosing. It's a great law. I understand it. We don't want someone to not call because they're afraid of arrest and die. But it does take away a tool. Where we go to a scene and someone's got a needle in their arm, we can't charge them. We knock in and bring them to the hospital. And unfortunately, within a day or two, they might be out doing it again. So what's our next move? The experts tell us, the counselors and the therapists say, the first 12 hours is crucial. So if you can get there within 12 to 24 hours, this is a key piece. This is a new program. Captain Rogers is instrumental in this program. He is the key person, and he's been identified as that person at our meetings. So we had these meetings back with Beth Israel Deaconess, Gosnold, High Point, Clean Slate. All of these people are at the table, and we come up with a program where they voluntarily pick a day. So there's a complete month calendar. And on these days, they pick a day where one of them will volunteer to go with the street crimes unit, plain clothes, to a house of someone who overdosed, and most of the time armed with a bed, and offer them resources. And we've been able to place people in beds that way. Either the family members bring them, worst case scenario, we bring them. We're not going to leave them there. So the department's committed to this. The officers have bought into this. So we're really proud of that program. So I can have Captain Rogers talk a little bit about how he activates that on a daily basis.
Please do.
Well, on a daily basis, I do review the log to determine if we've had any overdoses. In that particular case, we have a internet network, an email network, where all the parties that are involved, our entire network of groups, include Gosnold and High Point and Beth Israel Deaconess, And what will happen is once I determine if it's an overdose that's consistent with opiate use, at that particular point, I will notify the group through an email. I'll do this on a daily basis, generally first thing in the morning. By 10 o'clock in the morning, a member, whoever is the chief indicator, whoever's on call for that particular day will respond to the station. I will have notified the shift commander at that particular point that someone will be responding to go to a particular residence in order to offer this person some resources, some additional help. And quite frankly, since December 1st when we first started, we've been very successful. If we, on at least 4 occasions, we've been able to provide people beds, and on 2 other occasions we found out later that they followed up with rehabilitation facilities on their own through a family member, either after that visit or maybe a follow-up visit from the group. So we feel that that in itself has been very successful as far as the results we've been getting.
Now, if I could just expound a little bit on that, what's really phenomenal about this group is that if a person is on call for tomorrow morning and they work at Gosnold and High Point has a bed, they don't care about what agency has the bed. No one's in this for anything personal for their agencies. It's a great collaborative of people. So a person who works for Gosnold could go with the street crimes and offer a bed for High Point, and we'll get them there. Even if the Gosnold employee or the High Point employee or the Clean Slate employee, we just want to get them to a bed. The goal is to get them help, not for any specific area.
Right.
And in line with that, as I told you earlier, we're trying to get best practices because everyone's trying, every community's trying at different levels. What's the best practice? What can we do as a bigger group? So we did receive a grant, and it is a substance abuse prevention collaborative grant. And the collaboration is 3 communities: Plymouth, Middleborough, and Carver.
Okay.
And there's a grant of $125,000 for 3 years, and it's for this type of a situation. So we met with both those communities. As a matter of fact, there's a meeting tomorrow night of that group. I'll be there at that meeting. Captain Rogers is going to be on a radio show talking about things. So we're being pulled in different directions about heroin, and we're trying to bring these programs to those groups because if we get someone, if we find someone overdose in Plymouth and they live in Taunton, we really can't follow up with that.
Right.
But if we can get other communities on board, we should be able to make a phone call and get them follow-up help in that respect.
Now, Captain, will you be on WATD?
Yes.
Yes. What time?
Same time, 8 o'clock tomorrow evening.
Tomorrow evening,
Yes.
being interviewed on this issue.
Yes, and there'll be other members of the
I think
network.
there'll be a panel
as well.
of this group.
Very good. Very good. Now, you can call in and speak to these 2 fine gentlemen. They have all the information for you. My understanding is that you can apply the Narcan, but they have to go to the hospital because they could die anyway.
Yeah, the Narcan is a quick fix. I think there's a short period of time that you have to introduce it, which is maybe
20 minutes?
20 minutes,
5 or
yes.
6 minutes to introduce
Yes.
it, and it only
Yeah.
stops the reaction for around 20 minutes. So it's not something you can Narcan someone and then think they're fine. It gives you that window for them to get an ambulance, and then, of course, an ambulance can administer Narcan through intravenous, so it's a lot quicker. And it's a lot quicker and it's a lot more effective. So if we go to a situation where we Narcan someone, and sometimes you have to Narcan someone twice, and what we believe is that heroin was laced with fentanyl, which is in some ways.
They use that in embalming, don't
Fentanyl
they?
it's used in embalming, I believe, but it's also an end-of-life drug. It's to keep people comfortable. It's around 100 times, I'm being told, more strong and potent than heroin. So they'll lace it a little bit. We actually had a really good situation about 2 months ago where an officer did a great job on a motor vehicle stop, and we ended up getting 600 grams of that. So that was key off the street, as well as 200 grams of heroin that were just driving through town. So
Quickly, I have knowledge that the SHOT program, really doesn't work, but they should get into it. It's the long program, 12 to 14 months, that really does the job. I'm glad that there is a program there, but what does a week or 2 do? Oh, we have a phone call? Oh, sorry. Hello, you're on Talk of the Town?
Karen?
Hello?
Karen?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I'm surprised.
How are you? Thank you for calling.
I'm good. Thank you for being there. I just want to commend Chief Pateri and Captain Rogers, the sheriff, the whole works, the job the county and the Commonwealth and the town are doing together for what they're doing, because the help that they have been to my son and my family has just been phenomenal. It is a bit like being on a merry-go-round, and it takes a few years. But, Chief, I went through the process of sectioning my son, and it was pretty interesting because we worked with their therapist, and she said, well, if he wants to go to this facility or this facility or that facility, you want to do this so he gets picked up on a particular day, and it's likely he'll end up in Brockton. And I says, okay, cool. And so I did some research. I wrote the petition. I filled out the form they had online. I printed out an assessor's sheet with the owner and the street address of where my son was to be picked up. I printed out a map of the premises. I made a little arrow showing what unit to go to and which door to find him. And the police never showed up.
Oh, dear.
It's to be Tuesday. And my daughter's home. She calls the office. She says, Dad, the police are here. Is he over there? And I says, yeah, send him over. So it ended up transpiring on Tuesday. And he ended up going to Bridgewater instead of some other likelihood. And they went to the last known address. When? As a constructive criticism, no offense intended.
Sure.
But we learn as we go around this merry-go-round that information had been provided to the county and the court on where exactly to find the individual that needed help, but they just used the last known address. And I think that what I pull out of all of this, Mike, John, is that it's the cool hand Luke thing. You want to do the quote, Bodieri? What we have here is a failure to communicate. If the clerk in the court, when I went through all that thing with the county, had passed on the information I provided, then things would have worked more effectively and efficiently. There has to be a point with people in this process where they're looking to stage this. It's a very difficult thing to do. And I know that there are limited time frames for picking up somebody that needs help.
Right.
But make sure somebody's there and they want to be at the right place and things going on at a time that's been contemplated might be helpful in the future if the county and the town coordinate information that's provided in the petition.
Yeah, let me speak on that briefly, if you would. We've seen that before, and I think I know exactly what you're talking about. If you'll go to court and you'll petition a Section 35, and you give all that information, I'm assuming you gave that information to the court. That's my assumption. And I can tell you that it wasn't long ago where the court really, we were never getting the actual affidavit. The affidavit is the qualification and the statement as to why a person needs to be Section 35 or Section 12. And what we used to do, and I think it still happens in most communities, is what the court does is they do the paperwork, they'll sit down with you, they'll see there's enough probable cause, they'll issue it, and then you'll give them all this information about where to go and all of that, and they'll send the order to us, just the order. Now, we corrected this probably a year ago, John?
Yes, we did, yeah.
About a year ago, we went to some situations and we felt, we're going there unarmed with any information. We don't know exactly what the circumstances with the subject we're looking for. We don't know if they're suicidal. We don't know if we should knock on the front door. And we told them we need all the information they have. So we've corrected that, although, how long ago did this happen, sir?
Oh, gee. sir, huh? This is around Thanksgiving.
Okay, so it should have been. It shouldn't happen because we corrected it well before that. It's something I'll definitely look into because we want all the information they get. And you're right, there are communication gaps, and those are things we're trying to identify. So I'll tell you one thing: be confident that I'll be noting this down and looking into it and finding out exactly what happened. But we did notice that a year ago that we weren't getting information. I don't think anyone did. And we talked to the courts, and they said, we never send out the affidavit. And we said, well, we need that information. We need to know as much as you do so when we go, we know who we're dealing with, what we're dealing with, how we should respond, and in your case, where we should go, which seems basic, and you're absolutely right. But that's exactly what it is, failure to communicate. But we'll work on that with the court.
And if I could add to that, you talked about the time frame involved. Obviously, it's as far as the Section 35s go, we're kind of restrained to the hours during the court hours from 8:30 to 4:30 as far as picking someone up and getting them before the court before the end of business. And one of the other shortfalls we found is that the clerk's office would be faxing these to us to a usual fax machine. We receive it, but they may fax it blind, meaning they may fax it, but someone may not immediately be in the office to pick it up, and it could be half an hour later that someone finds it in the fax machine. So what we have done is we've worked with the clerk's office that they no longer fax it blind. Is that before they fax any documents to us, particularly Section 35, they'll speak to the shift commander and say, this Section 35 is on the way. Please expect and plan to act on it right away.
So we've made those changes in the last couple of years because of communication. So what you bring forward here is similar to that. It shouldn't happen. It's similar to that communication issue, and we will definitely reach out. We're looking for these gaps, so we appreciate you sharing it with us.
Well, I appreciate everything that you have done. Could I ask one other question, if I may?
Absolutely.
Of these two?
Absolutely.
After the first sectioning, and we went around the merry-go-round, and 4 or 5 weeks goes by, and we find ourselves coming to a grind again and starting all over. And we've been told that if you section a second time, instead of releasing the individual section to a parent that didn't sign the petition saying that the individual was a danger to themselves and others, that the second time around they go through the treatment, but then they have to go someplace else, to a halfway house, something undetermined. Do you know anything about that? Because people are getting rehabbed and sectioned multiple times, and I'm just curious, as you go through the sequence, if the consequences become more undetermined or more severe.
Well, I think I don't know the exact answer to your question if it's a mandatory thing. I know that what you're saying is probable, and we've seen that happen on many occasions. The second time that they will be released to a halfway house, and it just gives them, it's more of a half release, so at least they're under some control, but back in the environment and in the community. So that does happen. I don't have the answer for you if that's mandatory because it's a second or a third, but I can say that that is what we see as that people are experiencing.
May I answer too? May I?
Absolutely.
Go right ahead.
I have experience with a person the third time they chose to go for 12 months to a halfway home, and they had to reach goals before they were released. They had to excel in whatever they were given. They had to go to classes. They had to understand the severity of the problem. And it was their third time before that happened for a year.
Excuse me.
And it was a halfway house in Quincy.
Well, so, there is an end to the ride on the merry-go-round. There just has to be, because it just destroys everything that it touches. And what you guys are doing is phenomenal. Your efforts, your coordination, and it's really a pleasure. I know you guys. I know how hard you work and how much you love Plymouth and the kids here. And we'll get to the bottom of it all together. And all I can do is thank you.
Well, we appreciate that. How's your son doing now?
He's on his way to another rehab facility. I said, you're going in again, or you can pick your own bed. What do you want to do?
Okay. Well, if there's anything we can do, reach out to us for sure.
Thank you, Mike. Take care, John. Good night, Karen.
Thank you.
Good night, and I would take that advice. If there's anything that you need, pick up the phone. pick up the phone and call Mike or
I'm calling you.
no, yeah, you can call me, but call them.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah, everybody's got to be on the same page.
Yeah, we're working towards that. I mean, that's a good that's good feedback. We like that. I don't take that negative in any way. That's what we need to know. Things like that happen in all fields. It's just really important when you miss something in this field because someone could get hurt. So.
Well, they want you to succeed too.
Sure they do.
Absolutely.
Yep. No.
Because you're there for them and
Absolutely.
their loved ones, and they want you to succeed, and they're trying, and you're doing your best. And
Sure.
I mean, it's taken us years to get here.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And each individual is affected by this differently. I mean, as the caller indicated, it was a situation where his son, a couple, 3 times he's gone this route, and the person that you describe as well. Sometimes it takes more. Sometimes it takes a real overt act to really maybe a near-death experience before someone says, hey, enough's enough, and I need to really take this seriously.
Right. Does a person who is taking the drug know that it's laced with anything? Say,
They don't. I don't think they typically know. I think what we're seeing, which is a little bit more scary, is that there are some situations where even the dealers have Narcan and carry it with them, and they sell their product, if you will, with a caveat that it's so good you might need this. Now, to me, that's
Lord.
I don't know if you saw the special that was on the Cape Cod.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, it's right to the point. I mean, it's really 8 different addicts and what happens to them. So I think
I understand only one survived.
I think there was only one. I saw it. Only one actually came out very successful. I think a couple of them passed away during the show, and the other ones were still having problem with heroin. But only one actually came out, and to me, it was a great. It was a total different person. Like you saw her through her problems, and you actually see him shooting up heroin and doing all kinds of stuff like that. And when she came out, she was just this, beautiful girl that talked differently and was just like your daughter.
Well, they are.
Yeah.
They're beautiful to start off with, and they get hooked on this stuff. I mean, as parents, we remember them as children on your lap and how beautiful they were and wonderful, and something takes them over, and they don't want to be on it. They cannot help themselves.
Yeah.
It's not like, I don't know, I'm going to get in trouble here. It's not like, I don't think, and you can correct me, it's not like alcohol. If you really wanted to stop alcohol, you can, and there are pills to make you very sick if you drink alcohol. I could be all wet here, and my sympathy goes out. But I'm trying to say that I see the opiate issue a little bit different. It's the monkey on your back. And they can't seem to shake it unless they have solid help.
Yeah, and I think we've mentioned it a couple times. It needs to be a long-term situation. The short-term's great. We've had some short-term commitments that we've done, only followed by another overdose where the person passes away. Yeah. And we feel bad about that. We feel like, in some ways, we feel like we failed in that one. But, we really can't look at it that way. We have to look at it that we tried and we did get them help. There have been other situations where we've gone on a follow-up and they've refused to bed, and the next day they overdose and die as well. We deal with those families, and it's difficult. And the families, in a lot of ways, have blinders on, and in some ways they get upset when we talk about that a person overdosed, and I get that 100%. But we're not looking the other way. We're going to deal with this head on. So it's a difficult situation.
What happens if a person walks into the police station on their own and says, "Help me," or the hospital? I think there was something in the on Facebook recently about a sports player. that went directly to the police station.
Yeah, anyone that has a problem relative to anything like addiction, opiate, or any other addiction that comes in the police station will get the full support of the police department. You know, the only difference, I know you hear about the Gloucester model and all that other models.
Yes, you do hear about
and
that.
the Gloucester model is just, the chief's done a phenomenal job there.
Yeah.
I think one of the differences, if not the only difference, is they have a great program with volunteers. They get that a person has to be supported the first 12 to 24 hours. They really have that. It seems to be that they propose that they won't prosecute you for possession or for simple. And I think the DA's office, I know Plymouth County does have a difficult time with that. So, you know, we wouldn't want someone walking in the station and, you know, and putting heroin down on the table and think that we're not going to charge them, because the main reason is they're most successful if we charge them. We get phone calls from people, and we try to tell family members and loved ones that if there's a crime involved, you need to let us prosecute that case. And that's hard to do. But I'll tell you, a year and a half down the road, they're going to call and say, and we've got those calls, the best thing we ever did.
They're clean.
Because there's a consequence and they're in long term.
Yeah.
So anyone calls the number, calls the hotline on there, leaves a message, you'll receive a call back. We'll talk you through it. We'll walk you through it. We'll meet you down in court. We have a lot of things going that way. There's a program we're looking at next. I'll mention it really briefly. And the program is going to be local attorneys that volunteer to walk someone through a Section 35. Now, we'll do it, and I think that's great that we do that. But there's the stigma of police and all that. And the court's an intimidating thing if you don't do it every day. It's intimidating to anyone. Mm-hmm. So if they could get, and this has just started in Quincy. I talked to a lawyer in Quincy that is looking to do it up in that area.
They volunteer.
They volunteer. And
yeah.
so let's say we get a hotline call and someone needs a Section 35. They will actually help them with it. And I think they'll feel a lot more confidence with an attorney at no cost.
Talking them
and they'll actually go to
privately.
court and present it with them and help them. So that's the next piece
good.
that we're looking at to expand our program.
I like that.
And one of the things that came up at the last meeting, Captain Rogers can talk on a little bit as well, is they talked about, you know, what about the families? Like, we're focusing on the subject, and what about the families? Now, there's programs out there, and we're going to be redoing the flyer with those programs. There are programs for families. There are things they can do. So maybe a family member or a loved one doesn't feel they can actually go to court and see this through. But there are support programs they can go to, and that'll give them the confidence, and they'll see they're not alone, and all of that. So one of the other avenues that the group is going to talk about at the next meeting in a week or so is what can we do for families. We're looking at putting a card together, like a laminated small card that they can keep in their pocket. One side will be, you know, juvenile numbers to call if it's a juvenile. The other side will be adult. Something we can put out there so people can get in those programs. So that's been a gap, to be honest with you. And I'm not, no criticism. We've been focusing on the addict, which we needed to do, but we need to also get some of these resources to the families.
Well, I know a dear person that has just started doing that, going to other towns just so they can, you know, find that they're not alone, that they can find tools to, you know, help them.
Yeah.
We found that a lot of this happened with the loved ones of people that have passed on. They come to us, they sit there, and, you know, we talk to them, and it's like, well, what do I do now? You know, I've been affected by this in another way. I wasn't an addict, but now I've lost someone dear to me. That how do I respond now? And that's pretty much where we initiate the gap. Is like, now the issue is, well, maybe, you know, there are resources out there for you, that people to help you. Maybe you can eventually be a person that helps others, that you know, to prevent them from having this type of experience as well. So we're hoping. Well, go ahead. Well, we're hoping that we will fill that gap. I mean, as this program develops, I'm sure you know, we'll find other shortfalls that we want to make up, and different ways we can go with this program to make it better. And hopefully, this will be a jumping off point by helping the loved ones of those that are either addicts or maybe have passed on due to their addiction. Yeah, we'll see a lot of the family members at the vigils we go to, that we've talked about on many occasions that will come here. We've been, unfortunately, several vigils. And at those vigils, just like Captain Rogers is saying, you'll see family members talk about their story. All similar, unfortunately. You know, great people, great kids, you know, thought they were doing well, and all of a sudden one day they didn't make it. So
The other thing I found is at the meetings and the groups and all the different areas that we go to, there are a lot of people in Plymouth that want to help.
Yeah, I was just going to
we need
say
to
that.
We need to get that energy, and we need to focus that and
I
see what
bet
can
there
we do.
would be.
There are a lot of people.
Yes.
I go to the Rotary meeting, I go to other meetings, and people are saying, "What can we do? What can
we
this
do?"
group do?" I know that there's a drug theater that was done in Marshfield. We're going to be doing one in Plymouth, or maybe two in Plymouth, and that's an excellent group where they bring in family members as well as successful addicts that have successfully gone through rehab.
That's wonderful.
And they put on a theater, and they talk about their story. And the first one they did one in Plymouth at PCIS, and I didn't make it, but I talked to some people that did. And it was unbelievable. There was a father at that. I'm being told there was a father there, and he was watching this. It was being acted out by other addicts that had successfully made it. And at the end he stood up and he said, "I have to go home and apologize to my son." And he said, because I didn't know he was going through that.
Absolutely.
I was mad at him. You can stop. And he goes, I got to go help him and talk to him and see it differently. So great, phenomenal program, drug theater, and I think we'll see a couple of
I hope
soon.
I hear about it.
Yeah.
I'd love to
I'll make
see
sure you do.
that. I'd love to see that.
I'll make sure you do.
We have another phone call. Hello, you're on Talk of the Town.
Karen,
Yes.
I have a follow-up, and I appreciate your tolerance.
Oh, that's fine.
I just want the public to know that when they feel they have a child that needs to be sectioned, and the Plymouth Police Department shows up, that child in that situation is handled with great delicacy and diplomacy and compassion. And that if you think your child is using and you think you need to approach this process, the Plymouth Police are by far the best at handling these situations. It was just awesome. Nobody wants to do it, but if you have to do it and you have to have it done, these are the guys for it because they do a really good job, and it's just greatly appreciated. I just wanted people to know that. These are the good guys out there.
They are.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And the alternative is death.
Yeah.
That's the alternative.
It's the hard truth.
It's success, shaking it, getting rid of it, or death. Because you will die.
Thank you so much for your time, folks, and thanks for the effort, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for the comments. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
I think that's what changed the mind of the person I know.
Really?
It was either or. There was no middle.
Right.
And they wanted to live for their children.
Well, you want to give them all those reasons. And when you start talking about people's family and how tough it is on them, that sometimes that's what they need just to push themselves through it.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, they get to a point where they don't really care about themselves as much anymore.
No.
But when you talk about their kids and, what's going to be like without a parent,
Yeah.
I think you hit home pretty easily there.
And I didn't mean to say that about alcohol. I know how hard that is, too.
No, I think I know where you're coming from. I get that. I think that they're similar in a lot of ways. But I understand where you're coming from. I think this is all an education thing that we're all working on this together, and we're all trying to figure it out. So
And
we're all
you
trying
have
to learn.
great support from Charlie Baker, our governor.
We actually do. We actually do. And what was great to see for us, his opiate task force that we worked with on a lot of occasions, came out with a report a few months ago, and the report was right in line with what we were already doing. So it made us feel like it kind of validated that we were going in the right direction.
Yeah.
And our goal is to get a lot of other communities to go with us. This isn't anything that we protect. I give this brochure to any police chief that wants it. They just put their name on the front, and they can go with it. We're going to create those for those three communities, Plymouth, Middleborough, and Carver, for that collaborative.
Yeah.
We want to share this with anyone. This isn't something that we want to hold on to. Anything that we can give to another community, just reach out to us. We'll share it with you. We'll come to your department and talk
It's
about
the
it.
world community. I mean, we all have the same problem, apparently, and not apparently, it's true. I mean, it's very sad. And with all the other things that you deal with on a daily basis, you deal with this too. And you give it 100%. I don't know where your department finds the time. And you need more men. You need more, I should say, officers, men, women. You need that, and you asked for 8, and you've been given 4. Thank goodness you were given 4.
Sure, where we're at with that, I mean, we, after talking to the town manager, she's been supportive of the police department
she has
forever.
been, yeah.
And she's been committed the last few years to try to get us to where we need to be staffing-wise. And she's done that. You know, she's helped us in a lot of ways. And this year we came up with moving towards that direction of where we want to be. Scaling that up, 8 officers would have put us where we wanted to head in the next few years. We understand. I mean, there are a lot of things going on in the community. You know, we have a lot of things that happen, and there's only so much money. So we get that. We're thankful that the selectmen were able to support half of our request, and you know, whatever they're willing or able to, I should say. And I think every one of them at the meetings I've gone to, they never question the need. No. Ever. So they're not questioning that. They're just questioning the ability to do it today and do it now. So our goal, and I think I explained it there, is the issue we deal with is it's difficult to put people on the road. It's not like you're hiring them and they can go to work Monday. It's almost a 1-year process before they're on the ground, and you get a lot out of them. So if we stop, then it's like 2 years before you get anyone. Yeah. So we want to keep going. So totally supportive with the fact that they're willing to let us at least continue to move in that direction.
Yes. Ken Tavares, our chair of the select board, was here last week. Totally supportive of all services.
Absolutely.
And it's killing him. It's killing him.
Absolutely.
There's so much going on in this town, and it's heartbreaking because he knows where it should go, and I mean, and you weren't up to the level capacity of what you should have had before. I mean,
no, never have.
You were cut years ago.
Yeah, we never have been. I mean, we have. We were.
And this isn't a cut. This was a request.
Right, or it was a reduction in a request.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Back when the captain and I first were promoted to our positions back in 2008. We were staffed at 100 positions, patrols, everyone including the chief, which was, if you look back at 1997, we were staffed at 104.
Yeah.
So from 97 to 2008, we went down four offices. And from 2008 on, the last few years, we've made some great strides. Yeah. We ended up putting on 3 and then 9 for street crimes, and then we're looking for another 8, but we get 4.
And your department mostly puts on the men, the women, the men. That's where we need the resources. Of course, your patrol cars at times, they break down and you need stuff. But you're usually trying to fill those positions because we're such a big town and there's so many things going on. You need.
Yeah, it's a unique community in a lot of ways. The size of the community is unique. The fact that we have an airport, a nuclear plant right now anyway, a tourist situation. We have
and that's
a hospital, a court system, and a jail. There aren't a lot of communities that compare to that. So to police that, it's challenging.
Right. Oh my goodness. Do I hear music?
Couldn't be.
I thank you so much for coming.
Always nice to see you, Karen.
Thank you, Karen.
This was wonderful, and I thank you. Welcome
Thanks for having us. We appreciate it.
Anytime. Next week, we will have the 3 Amigos on, the 400th show, and I'll be back the week after with State Senator Vinnie DiMacedo with more information on everything. See you in 7.